For many, 65 was the magic number for retirement. Today, that's not even full retirement age. On today's show, we'll highlight why it's hard to retire at 65 and offer some tips to help get you to retirement on your terms. Come right on back to Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. And 42 years combined experience between these two. And again, it's about helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, and each and every week it's always about retirement, but we also give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, meet with Mark, Casey, and their team, and talk about your retirement situation. Maybe you haven't started planning. Maybe you're in the middle of something, you need a second opinion. So stay tuned. We'll open up those spots here in just a little bit. So according to a recent Gallup poll, 25% of those polled said that they would retire by 65. However, 39% say they're going to retire after the so-called magic number, which is 65. Here are some reasons why folks are delaying their retirement. So, Casey, we'll start with you. And two of them, they're kind of flip side of the coin. Haven't saved enough, haven't saved anything.
Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand, right, Morgan? And I think this one is pretty, or these two, I should say, are pretty obvious. If you haven't saved enough, then undoubtedly that's really one of the only things you can do is delay your retirement. The other thing that you can do, of course, while you're delaying retirement is to save more. But if you haven't saved enough, that really is going to push things back. So despite people's best intentions, of course, sometimes life gets in the way. We understand that. We've all been there. But you've really got to take the time and consider this and put as much into your savings, into your retirement as you can. And we talk about this a lot, right? Balancing paying yourself today versus paying your future self and making sure that you're setting yourself up, that you're planning for tomorrow. The last thing you want to do is get to 64 thinking you're going to retire at 65 and you just realize you don't have enough. And so this is where it's really important to sit down and have that conversation sooner rather than later. To see if you're on track, right? A lot of times people think that it's maybe too early to start planning, and that's just not the case. But you do have to have some assets to do planning, right? So save as much as you can, have that conversation. And then, of course, realistically, if you haven't saved anything, you're really you're coming up short, right? Obviously. So that's going to cause you to delay. A Go Banking Rates retirement savings survey found that 1/3 of Americans have nothing saved for retirement, and 55% have less than 10,000. So, I mean, those are staggering numbers. And Mark and I are looking at each other going, oh my gosh, there's not a whole lot that we can do to help with that, right? This is just something that you've got to save. You've got to have that discipline. Now, this is an interesting piece though, Mark, right? Where it comes in is if you haven't saved enough, if you haven't saved anything, but let's say you did save, here's something that really comes up is if you didn't account for taxes, right? That's going to hit you hard.
Yeah. In fact, what Casey was just mentioning, I just want to maybe piggyback just a little bit because there's two types of pains, and Casey hit the pain of discipline, right? We need to be disciplined. We need to be putting money into our different plans, profit sharing, 401ks, 403bs. But as he just mentioned, can you imagine 55% have saved nothing? Do you think they're going to deal with that second type of pain, which I promise you nobody wants to have, and that is the pain of regret? And so this is why we talk about a plan on every show that we do. And Casey just mentioned a big one that doesn't get accounted for in a lot of planning, and that's the tax aspect. Because if you're working with a wirehouse, or one of the big boys, you might say, and you ask them about tax planning and can you help? We know what the answer to that is, right, Casey? What do they normally tell us?
Oh, you got to talk to your CPA. You got to talk to your accountant, right? They don't want to touch it.
They do not. Yep. They won't touch it. And in fact, in some arenas, they can be fired if they do, because the firm doesn't want the liability. Now, we believe it needs to be the exact opposite, because if you don't have a plan for taxes, well, you really do, but it's not the one that you're going to want to have, right? The government's going to do one for us. So you've got to have a plan for that. You know, when you withdraw money from our IRAs or our 401ks, that money is going to be taxable the year that we do that distribution. We didn't pay taxes on it up front, but now we have to pay taxes when it comes out on the back end, and that can be a little painful. we try and help our clients so they don't get hit with a big, what we call a RMD torpedo. RMD stands for required minimum distribution. But if you've done no tax planning for those RMDs, it can throw you into a bigger tax bracket, right? It could hurt them when it comes to their Medicare premiums. Instead of you paying maybe the $164.50 for your premium, you could be as high as close to $600 a month because you didn't do any planning when it comes to your RMDs. So again, we just want everyone to think about this. If you have a plan and we are really helping you figure taxes out, it's not how much you've made. Casey and I's big belief is it's how much you keep, right? And keeping is the most that we can is going to be related to our tax liability, right? And inflation. Those are the two big ones. So please think about talking to someone that can really help you on the tax planning side of things, because if you don't, you're going to end up with less in your pocket.
Elevate Your Wealth. You're tuned to it. Your host, Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle. I'm Morgan Patrick. I'm just hanging on, and we talk about retirement topics up one side and down the other. They're certified financial fiduciaries, 42 years combined experience. It's all about having a plan, having that retirement puzzle, but making sure you have all the pieces and they fit so snugly together. And talking about the fact that 65, it's considered overall the magic number, but the magic numbers, well, it's not very magic for some. Some people are working past 65. Why is that? And also talk about how you can retire on your own terms. So things that we've already talked about. You haven't saved enough, so you got to continue to work. You haven't saved anything, so you know you're going to be working. And then you didn't account for taxes, as Mark just told us. That's a big one. And this next one, Casey, 65, it's really not considered full retirement age for a lot of us now.
Yeah, it's not. I think most people, that's still what's in their mind, right? Is 65. That's retirement. Like you said, that's the magic number. And that's what a lot of people are searching for. That's what they're trying to attain. But ultimately, we realize that with longer life expectancies for Social Security, that's no longer the standard retirement age. Now, you can start your Social Security at 62, but that's not officially full retirement age as far as Social Security is concerned. Depending on what year you were born, it's 66 and some odd months. Or if you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. And Mark and I we do believe that likely Social Security may push that back even further. There's been a lot of proposed changes or discussions surrounding Social Security. And so we think that full retirement age might get pushed back to 70. So longer life expectancies, that kind of thing, that's really going to potentially delay when you can retire, because if you're going to have a longer life, then you're going to need more money to fund that longer lifetime. And so you've really got to save now. That's the key. You don't want to get to 60 or 62 and then try to start saving then, or even 55, right? Let the time that you can put into your savings and the time that you have in the market will create success for you in retirement, but you've got to start sooner rather than later. And as medicine continues, ultimately those life expectancies, in theory, should continue to get pushed further and further out. So that makes that retirement age even later if you haven't been saving properly. So you've got to put the time in and make sure that you're accounting for that in your plan.
Well, let's slide Mark in here real quickly. You don't want to leave money on the table. You can start your Social Security at 62, but guess what? That would be a smaller check. And if you can plan for it and you can afford to wait, I mean, you could benefit from that.
Yeah, that's a big one. When to take your Social Security is one of the biggest questions that we have clients ask us. And we run Social Security optimization, and it can make a huge difference. In fact, I was just reading this morning that, if you go at 67, if that's your full retirement age, you could be looking at close to 77% more income over a life expectancy. And so that's a huge decision. You don't want to go at 62 if you don't really need the income to live, because that 25% permanent reduction plus having an earned income test that we didn't really talk about that could take 50% of your money between 62 and full retirement age. You need to understand these rules and not make a decision that you're going to regret, and it probably will cost you several $100,000 because you decided to take Social Security at 62.
Tell you, it's so important to, dot the I's, cross the T's, have that plan as you move to and through retirement. There are a lot of moving parts. And working with professionals, working with fiduciaries, mapping this out gives you that ease of mind as you head off into retirement. If you're 5 years out, if you're 10 years out, you're in that red zone, as we like to call it, you really need to hunker down and make sure your plan is good to go. Mark, we have positions on your calendar for the upcoming week at Elevated Financial Management. We've got 10 spots. What's going to happen for these 10 callers?
If you're listening right now, please pick up the phone and give us a call. If you've saved at least $250,000 or more, maybe you worked at Boeing or one of our great companies in the Seattle area, please give us a call. We've been talking about tax planning. We see not a lot of us have done much in that regard. So if you don't have a plan for taxes, you're worried about income being guaranteed over your normal life expectancy, please pick up the phone and give us a call. You're going to leave your checkbook at home. We're going to just have a conversation. That's all we want to do is find out your specific situations, because Casey and I truly believe your situation is very unique to you. So please pick up the phone, give us a call, and let us help you put together a plan that you've worked so hard for, but let it be done by our team of certified financial planners.
Once again, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. The number to call to secure one of the 10 appointments for the upcoming week, 866-668-3625. Again, 866-668-3625. Leave the checkbook at home, as Mark said. This is complimentary. This is an opportunity to get to know the team at Elevated Financial Management. You get to meet Mark and Casey. And again, an opportunity to sit down and talk about your situation. 866-668-3625. Call now. When we come back, we'll highlight 7 solid financial moves you can make when you are ready to retire. That's coming up next. Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle. 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. They have a wonderful resource website. Check out efmnw.com. That's all letters, efmnw.com. You can find links to the TV show Elevate Your Wealth, and of course all of our radio shows are in podcast form. You can watch and listen to your heart's content. Again, I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, and we talk retirement each and every week, but we give you an opportunity to take action on your own behalf. That's right. We have 10 appointments available during the course of this show, and they are complimentary appointments where you'll meet with Mark and Casey and their team and talk about where you are in your planning process, which is one of two places. You've either not started or you're in the middle of something and you need a second opinion. Easy to book an appointment. Again, complimentary. All you got to do is call 866-668-3625. One more time, 866-668-3625. So the older we get, guys, the faster time seems to click by. Mark, I know you're in there with me. It just seems to fly. Casey's a little bit younger than we are, but I mean, the clock just seems to speed up on us. And before you know it, guess what? Retirement's staring you in the face. And hang on, we've got some suggestions for some last-minute financial moves to make before you say so long to your working world, all right? So, Mark, let's start with you. The older we get, the closer we get to retirement, take a look at that portfolio and reduce the risk.
Yeah, in fact, as many of you know, if you've listened to the show any amount of time, I'm retirement age with a lot of the listeners. I turned 66 and a half the first part of September, the first week, actually the first day of the month. And so I could turn on my Social Security if I want to. So I'm doing a lot of the things that I'm sharing with all the listeners that are concerned about retirement and how to get it done. Now, one of the things that we run into a lot is portfolio risk. And we believe this type of planning really needs to be centered on age-based planning, meaning I love the rule of 100. It's been around forever. You take your client's age. So if I've got a 66-year-old, I'm going to subtract that from 100. It's going to leave me 34. I don't want much more than about 34% Now, that can vary a little bit, but that client's portfolio needs to be protected. So they need to have around 34% in guaranteed account, or at risk, I should say. The rest of the money needs to be in guaranteed accounts. And so you really need to make sure that you look at that, because here is the reason why. You've been working 30 or more years, possibly. We need to stay up with inflation. Casey does a good job about this when we do our workshops at the colleges in our area. And if you don't, inflation is going to spank us and it's going to hurt, right? And this is when Daddy pulled down our pants and he used a belt, okay? Because this one could hurt pretty severely. Because here's one of the things you have to really worry about. If you're in that retirement red zone, which Morgan was just talking about, you may not have the luxury of time to recover from a bad downturn like what we had in the year 2000 or 2008, where we lost 50% of our money. You may not be able to recover from that, as if if we were younger, you have a lot more time to recover from that. So here's something to think about. If your number was, let's say, $1 million and a bear market hits us, which there are many that are now talking about a hard landing. We were talking about a soft landing possibly. Well, now that's kind of switched a little bit in the last month or so. And so if you lose, even if it was 20%, you're now down to $800,000, right? If you started with $1 million, you could have less than that. So that's why we believe it's so critical that you have a plan where you can draw money out of possibly different buckets that are not declining at the same time that you need to withdraw money out to live. This is why every one of us needs a written plan, and we can't overemphasize how important it is, which that really leads to something I want to ask Casey. We need to maximize our 401k contributions, and some people, as we just talked about last segment, they're not doing that. So why is that so critical, Casey?
Well, it's time in the market, right? So many people want to try and time the market. And they think that's going to create success in their portfolio. And ultimately, that's really not it. That's really, really difficult to do. Very few can do it. And the ones that have done it can't do it consistently. So ultimately, it's time in the market. What we mean by that is making those contributions for years and years and years, right? Dollar cost averaging into it, making sure that you're following that plan to be able to build up. Now, those of you that are close to retirement, right? That's since we're talking about retirement, those of you that are close in your 50s, there's a catch-up provision. So this is really the time for you to maximize your 401k contributions. For 2023, 401k contribution limit for employees is $22,500. If you're over the age of 50, it's actually $30,000. So you're likely in your highest earning years in your 50s. Instead of increasing your lifestyle by that pay raise that you got, increase your contributions in your 401k. Pay your future self. You'll be so happy that you did, because it's that additional money and that additional time that's going to set you up for success in retirement.
Tell you, a solid financial moves that you can make to make sure you are ready. And again, Mark telling us reduce portfolio risk. And Casey, great point. You're 50 and older. You get a catch-up contribution. You can really help your accounts as you move towards retirement in those latter years. All right, this one, Mark, plan your Social Security claiming strategy. Man, I tell you, we talk about Social Security almost on every single show, but that's because it's very important.
Yep, this is the third one on our list of 7, right? So again, it's age-based. All I want to say is you need to maximize, have an optimal strategy. And we have some wonderful software that will help us to do that, because you can take a tremendous reduction of up to 30% if you're not careful, just by going at age 62. So again, there's a wonderful 8% guaranteed growth rate as it stands right now by law. If we wait from, let's say, 66 to 70, so you could end up with 132% more on your money. So the bottom line is, please have a plan and a strategy as to when and how you're going to take your Social Security, because it can make all the difference in the world, because that's going to take us to the next 2, which is 4 and 5 on our list, and that's make a retirement budget and check out Medicare provisions. Why is that important, Case?
Well, it should kind of go without saying that you've got to have a budget, right? Ultimately, you need to know what you're spending. Yeah. You need to know what your income looks like. And so we've got to make sure that that's the case for retirement too. it shouldn't really be a surprise that your monthly budget in retirement will likely look different than when you were working. So maybe you've paid your house off at this point, so you don't have that house payment, but you will likely have higher medical expenses. Maybe you'll be traveling. You're going to have more time to spend money on doing those things that you want to do, and that's important, but you need to know what those costs look like. And some other expenses may be lower, but ultimately something you need to plan for. Now, we just mentioned medical, and Mark, as you brought out, Medicare, right? Ultimately, Medicare is going to be a cost that folks have to deal with. It's not free, right? So Part A is free. Part B does have a monthly premium, but that premium is based on what you earn. So that can vary. And then you still have Part C, which you've got to take care of, Med Advantage, Med Supplemental. You've got to make sure that that's part of the plan too. So that really has to be accounted for. There are some things that you can do. We do Medicare in our office here for our clients, but there are some things that you can take care of or adjustments that can be made to make sure that you're spending the dollars as wisely as possible. Now, that really ties in with number 8, which is establishing a long-term care plan. Mark, you and I both know if something's going to blow up a plan, it's long-term care.
Yeah, it is. That's number 6, actually, out of 7.
6. I'm sorry. Yeah. Jumping way out there.
Yeah, we were given one too many. But yeah, long-term care is so critical. I'm in this business because of what happened to my grandparents. Watched them get wiped out financially when he got Alzheimer's. So please, you must have a plan for this. And over 75% of us are going to use some form of long-term care. So you need to have a plan as to how you're going to deal with that if and when that day comes. And for many of us, it is coming. We just don't want to believe it. That's the problem. And that the last one here, consider downsizing. You really need to think about ways to be able to do that, because it's really going to help you with your budget. So again, downsizing will be critical. This is going to lead us right to what Casey's going to help us to figure out is, how can you talk with somebody that might know what they're talking about? Casey, what's the offer going to be right now?
Well, Mark, as you brought out previously, ultimately what it boils down to is having a written financial plan, right? When we talk about these things that you can do, that you can make changes, you want to make sure that you're planning for and accounting for what's coming your way. So when it comes to retirement, you want to have a plan, especially when it comes to taxes. I think this is something that really gets missed a lot. Yep. That's why we talk about it so frequently. We are in a very special circumstance right now to be able to deal with taxes at possibly one of the lowest tax rates that we're ever going to see. So right now would be the time to attack that. When it comes to healthcare, now's the time to have a plan. What's inflation going to do to your investments over time, to your income over time? This is something that you've got to account for. So the offer really boils down to a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. You'll be able to come in to sit down with myself, sit down with Mark. We will put that all together for you. Leave your checkbook at home. Don't hesitate to call.
Okay, folks, this is your opportunity. 10 positions on the calendar for the upcoming week. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. The number to call to secure an appointment, 866-668-3625. Again, that number, 866-668-3625. We talk retirement topics each and every week, but it's important for you to kind of, dial it in. You got to focus in, especially if you are still working, and we've been talking about that in this portion of the program, and you can still add to your accounts and look, have that plan to get you to and through retirement. So if you've not started planning or you're in the middle of something and you need a second opinion, we have appointments for you. 866-668-3625. That number to call. One more time, 866-668-3625. Well, we are living longer, and that means we need sustainability, and we need more money in retirement. We need more money than our grandparents. So when we come back, we're going to break down some mistakes to avoid so you don't run out of money. That's all coming up next on Elevate Your Wealth. Elevate Your Wealth, Elevated Financial Management, the power behind the program right here in Seattle. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, 42 years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business. They are certified financial fiduciaries, again, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Each and every week, it's always retirement, and it's about the importance of having a plan to get you to and through retirement. If you have any questions, you can always go to the website. It's a great resource for you. efmnw.com. Again, all letters, efmnw.com. You can see links to the TV show and all of our radio shows in podcast form, plus great information there, and you can get in touch with Elevated Financial Management. All right, so most of us grew up learning some basic rules when it comes to saving for retirement. And the problem is many of those old rules, they're no longer applicable, right? You just can't apply them. And according to the American Academy of Actuaries, a couple who both reach age 65 will have a 50% chance of having one spouse live into this, get ready, their 90s. That being said, we wanted to outline some mistakes. These are mistakes to avoid when it comes to your retirement savings. So, Casey, you're up first. You got to know what your fees are. You got to know what's in those financial products.
Yeah, this is really, really big, Morgan. I mean, people not knowing what their fees are in their investments. I can't tell you how often people come in here. Mark and I sit down and talk with them. I mean, right, Mark? I mean, this happens all the time, right? People have no idea what they're paying, right? No idea. And then we do an analysis, right? Because we don't like to make recommendations until we have a better understanding of where somebody's currently at. And through that process, we start to see these underlying fees, these hidden fees, expense ratios, whatever it may be, a sales load on a mutual fund, things of that nature. And ultimately, we lay that bare for everybody because we want folks to know what it costs them to invest. And here's the deal. When it comes to fees, we're not saying that all fees are bad. That's really not the circumstance. At the end of the day, if you're getting what you're paying for, that's great. Now, I'll give you a scenario, and we talk about this a lot. If you're paying for a Mercedes and you drive off the lot in a Honda, something is not right. Now, there's nothing wrong with either of those vehicles, right? I like them both. They're great. But ultimately, you've got to get what you're paying for. And so those high fees, that will eat up your investments, that will eat up the return. And in a down year, you're still paying those fees. So you've got to know what they are. You want to be very well aware. Mark, I mean, what you've seen clients 3.5%, 4% annually. Yep. I've seen the same, right? We've seen folks paying 3.5%, 4% or more annually in their fees in their different investments. Now, that's not every investment, but there are some like that. And I'll tell you what, you got to have a heck of a return to overcome a 3.5% or 4% fee. So really, it's something you need to be aware of, make sure that you're accounting for, and that you truly understand it. And part of that's going to come back to the advisor as well, right? Who's the advisor that you're working with? What type of investments do they recommend? Are they a fiduciary? Do they abide by the fiduciary standard, or do they abide by a suitability standard? Those are very different. We're not going to get into all the details there, but those are very different things. I know you have some thoughts on this too, Mark.
You know, I was just thinking, Forbes not too long ago did a really wonderful study about fees, and it was what Casey mentioned. People that are using an advisor that's qualified can help the average rate of return inside the portfolio be anywhere from 2.5% to 4% higher because they are able to use their skills to help that client achieve a better goal. And so, as Casey mentioned, all fees are not bad, but you need to be getting what you're paying for, because somebody that knows what they're doing is probably going to really help you to accumulate a little more wealth because of those fees. So we don't want fees to always be looked at as negative, thinking you can do it yourself, because let's be honest here. People don't hire an advisor, right? Because they don't want to pay a fee. That's what it boils down to. But they don't understand that they're cutting their nose off sometimes despite their face when they do that, because they don't have the expertise that a good planner might be able to help them with.
Yeah, that's a really important point, right, Mark, is that ultimately when you're looking for a professional, you hire a professional for that thing, right? When you need a specialty service, you hire the right person for that. And so we kind of do live in a DIY age, right? And there are some things you can do yourself, but ultimately this is something where you really want to be working with the right person. Now, something else that we see too is very commonly people use outdated rules for withdrawing money, right? So that 4% rule, that's still kind of the standby, and that really can be problematic too.
Yeah, that's something that we believe now could really backfire and cause a real problem inside your plan. There are many, Dr. Wade Pfau, Moshe Molesky, that would tell you they believe that a good safe drawdown rate is closer to 2%, some maybe 1.8. So if that's the case, what does that mean? Well, that means if you've got $1 million, you can, at a 2% drawdown rate, you can only take out 20,000 a year to be safe and make sure that your money is going to last. So you can't just necessarily believe that old rule of 4%, you're going to be okay, because that could come back and backfire on you, right? And so we don't want that to ever happen. I have a recent article where a woman is now in her 90s, and she admitted she never believed she was going to live to that age. And she's now living with her children, which is great. They've taken her in. But her guilt was pretty extensive because she didn't plan for money to last long enough. And that's why understanding your drawdown rate can make a huge difference. And so, again, a plan is going to help you have a safe rate of withdrawal, making sure that your money will last, because that old 4% rule goes back to the 90s. And look what's changed. I think we all understand. Look at what's happened in the last 20 years, 30 years.
It's become more complicated, for sure.
I tell you, folks, I mean, you think about it, and the guys are hitting on this. I mean, we are living longer. And you really need to plan for it. There are so many things that impact you as you move to and through retirement. But more importantly, you're going to be in retirement so much longer. Now, an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, and you can talk about your situation. You can see if your plan is doing okay, get that second opinion. Or if you have not started planning, but you're sitting on that portfolio, this is it, folks. We have 10 positions on the calendar for next week, and you can grab one right now. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you're doing any of these mistakes, boy, I tell you, jump on in there. If you have not started planning, opportunity is knocking on your door. So again, breaking down some mistakes to avoid so you don't run out of money in retirement, because we are living longer. We've talked about high fees, costly financial products, know exactly what's going on. If you're using outdated rules as far as withdrawing your money, that could cost you. And then, Casey, exposing investments to too much risk. I mean, you're closer to retirement and you're too risky.
Yeah, this is something that we see all the time. And I think, Mark, to kind of tie in with your last point here about withdrawing money, that 4% rule, how much can you take? Ultimately, that used to be 6%. Then it's become 5%, 4%. Now it's even debated, is it even 2% that you can take, right, as you were talking about? And a lot of that has to do with longer life expectancy, right? But there's also the fact that the market is a lot more volatile than it used to be. And so that's what we're talking about here, is taking too much risk. That ultimately would have a major detriment to your retirement, because when you're 5 to 10 years from retirement, you're in the retirement red zone, right? So when it officially becomes time to start taking money out of your investments, if the market has a down year and then you have to take $40,000 or $50,000 out to meet your expenses for the year, you may never recover from that loss and then the withdrawal that you took, right? So taking too much risk, you're exposing yourself. And as you get closer to retirement, that risk is a lot more real, because that is going to impact the rest of your life. And so as was talked about previously, we talk about it all the time. As you get older, you want to make sure that you're becoming more conservative and making sure that your investments really are structured the right way based on where you're at in your retirement. Now, for those of you thinking about this and maybe pondering your investments and what you have in your 401k, a lot of times that risk is not really known to the investor, right? People don't know it until we start to sit down and look at market scenarios and see how their investments would react if we were to replay different market issues that have come up over the last 20 or 30 years. And so ultimately, this is something where you've got to have that conversation. You've got to sit down. You've got to understand what risk you're taking in your investments, and really have that conversation with somebody that's a fiduciary that's going to put your interest above their own. That's really key. You want to add something, Mark?
Yeah, I was just thinking here, there are several retirement plans in the United States that were managed by so-called professionals, but because the interest environment, the bond rate over the last decade was really bad, low, then they took on too much risk. And a lot of these retirement plans, they're at risk now of not being able to even pay the retirements of so many that counted on that. And these were professionals. So if you think you can outdo the professional, it might be a tough road. So that's why I really want to highlight what Casey is saying. This could really devastate your plan if you try and do this alone and you don't have some help, and you're exposing yourself to too much risk because maybe you're trying to make up for some bad years where you didn't get much in return, right? It can cause you to maybe get emotional and make some bad decisions.
Yeah, that can really be a big mistake. And I think this is kind of the last one that we have time for, Mark, but something that we don't want to skimp on, right, is taxes, right? People overpay, they don't plan. There's no real clear path for them in their taxes for retirement, and that's a big issue.
Yeah. Retirees today, they need to be aware of how taxes are going to impact and dramatically reduce their retirement savings. We know that if you're a retired couple, maybe you're receiving Social Security, you got a small pension if you're fortunate enough to have that. You may be in a low enough income bracket where they could take out some of their IRA or their 401k money and possibly keep them in the same bracket. But a lot of times it could put them into a higher bracket, right? And if you don't have a plan for that, it can be a disaster waiting to happen. So please have a plan that you know exactly how taxes are going to affect you, because it's going to be the single largest eroder of your income and your money over time, period. Taxes are, and they're going up. I think we all have to agree to that.
Well, we've got 10 positions on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. Mark, what's going to happen for these 10 callers?
So please pick up your phone. If you've saved $250,000 or more, maybe you're getting ready to retire from Boeing, and we're going to put together a plan that's done by our team of certified financial planners. As we've been talking about, we're really going to take a hard look at your tax strategy. Do you even have one? Then we're also going to be able to look at maybe your risks, what you're taking inside your portfolio. We want you to know all the fees that are associated with whatever risk you are taking, because we really see a lot of times for the risks that people are taking, right? We talk with them all the time. They're not getting the return based on the risk. So that can be a problem. Then what about any income? Is it guaranteed for life? These are all things that we want those listening to have a good handle on. We want you to have a written plan because you deserve it. You've worked your whole life for this time to have a retirement that you dreamed about, and we don't want your retirement to turn out to just be a fairy tale because you don't have a plan.
I love it. You don't want a fairy tale. You want a dream, and you want it to be real. Yep. 10 appointments available right now. 866-668-3625. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number now. Grab one. 866-668-3625. When we come back, we've got retirement scenarios. You're listening to Elevate Your Wealth. Elevate Your Wealth. Again, the power behind this program, Elevated Financial Management, right here in Seattle. Your hosts are Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. They have 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. And I tell you, it's always about retirement. We're going to give you some scenarios, and we're going to have the fellows handle these scenarios. We want to remind you, too, we are here to help. We have 10 appointments available with Elevated Financial Management for the upcoming week. These are complimentary. That means no cost, no obligation. There is no pressure. And as Mark likes to say, you leave the checkbook at home. This is your opportunity to either get started with your planning, or maybe you need that second opinion. The appointments are available at any time during the course of the show. 866-668-3625 is the number to call. That's 866-668-3625. All right, scenario number one. To Casey, I'm 64, starting a new job this year. Should I even bother to sign up for the 401k plan, or at this age, should I just save money elsewhere? And if I'm saving it elsewhere, where should I do it? Traditional IRA, Roth IRA, after-tax brokerage account, etc. Help me out.
Yeah, I think that this is a very interesting scenario, right? So I get the wisdom behind, well, maybe, I'm 64. Does it even make sense to save anything in a 401k? I could see why somebody might think that. But realistically, in a 401k, in theory, you should have something that you don't get in an IRA, which is a match, right? And so if you're working, even if you're 64, 65, 68, whatever that age is, it doesn't matter. If you're still working and you have a 401k that has a match as a provision, you want to get that match, right? Because that's free money that you're not going to get if you contribute to an IRA or somewhere else. So that's kind of the first piece of the answer to that question. There's kind of some caveats to that, though. So there also is the consideration of a Roth IRA, right? Now, putting money into something that's going to be tax-free in the future, the value of that is tremendous, right? Especially when we believe that taxes are going up. If we think that right now we're in a low tax rate and taxes are going up, then why would we not try to save on taxes by paying the taxes now and ultimately saving that over the course of retirement? So that's one thing to consider. Now, maybe you have a Roth 401k that you can contribute. So that would really be kind of the best of both worlds if you can get a Roth 401k. If that's not available, then looking at a Roth would be valuable. All I can say is that this is very kind of a specific situation as to dependent on what options you have available to you. So generally speaking, definitely contribute to a 401k if you get the match, but we also want to consider what other assets you have and what all that income is going to look like in retirement, what other assets the taxes are going to be for those things, and making sure that you're accounting for that overall as part of a plan instead of just one particular individual investment. Now, here's another scenario, and I'll kick this one to you, Mark. So it says, I'm leaving my current job to start work with a new company in a month. I have a pension with my current company and basically have three options to consider. I could start taking the pension now, I could defer it and start taking a higher amount later, or I could roll it over to an IRA as a lump sum. Which option usually makes more sense?
Well, you've opened Pandora's box with this one, right? This is, I can't even begin to answer this for you on this one. This is a question that we do see, like, what option should I take when it comes to the annuity with my pension plan? Should I do a spousal? Should I do a single life? Or do I want to do with what we call a life plus 10 years certain period? We don't know. All I can say is that's where having all the information and working with a fiduciary can make all the difference in the world. What I've seen over the years is, and this is true of some of my Boeing clients, they saw when they got the retirement packet, they saw that the big number, the top number at the top of the page was the one that, oh yeah, I want that number. That's the biggest. But what they failed to realize, that was a life only option. And if they died after maybe getting one or two or three checks, their pension was gone. And see, how does that help the surviving spouse? It would be a disaster, right? And that actually happened in my own house with my grandfather. He did that to my grandmother. So I'm very sensitive to that. You want to protect each other, and it's critical. So what you do with that pension, usually a lot of times we cannot create a private pension if you were to do a lump sum that will be as high as leaving the money in your current plan and turning on an annuity payment. But then again, some of my Boeing clients, I bring this up because if you're not married, you don't have the option to take anything but the single life. Now, that's a disaster waiting to happen, right? Because again, if you have kids, maybe you're not married, but you'd like the money to go to your children. Well, what's going to happen if you get a check and then die? Your kids get nothing. So then you would want to roll in to your own, take the lump sum, as you mentioned, take it, put it into your own annuity where we can list the children as primary beneficiaries. So again, what you should do with the money coming from an old plan, there are a lot of different options. We just want you to be sure that you're educated enough to look at all the options, how they really work. And don't make too hasty of a decision on this, because these decisions will last a lifetime in retirement. And boy, it could be a wrong decision if you're not careful. So we really want to think about that when we look at these options for retirement planning.
Retirement scenarios. And again, there might be one that's similar to what you're going through, but it's not exactly what you're going through. You need to make sure you have a customized plan to get you to and through retirement. Opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management, meet with Mark and Casey and their team and see if you're doing okay. If you don't have a retirement plan, you could certainly get the ball rolling. If you're in the middle of something, need that second opinion, absolutely jump on one of these appointments. They are complimentary. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Here's the number to call to grab one, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. All right, next scenario. Casey, this one for you. My wife has been retired from the workforce for 8 years, and the two of us have approximately $750,000 in assets. We have no debt. our combined Social Security benefits today would be more than adequate to sustain our current lifestyle. Is there any point in waiting an additional 3 years to retire at full retirement age if I can comfortably live off Social Security benefits right now?
Well, I'll say this, it's really nice to have that option, right? That's great, right? If you can live off your Social Security, you got $750,000 in assets, no debt. I mean, hats off to the folks in this type of situation. That's great, right? And so it's nice to have that choice. Ultimately, there are some other things to kind of understand, but just at face value, I'll say this. I could understand why it might make sense to go, or why you might think it might make sense to go pull Social Security right now. You said waiting, 3 years to reach full retirement age? So maybe you're 63 or something like that in this scenario. So I could understand why you might think that. And that is absolutely an option. But let me give you something else to consider. We've talked about this already. If you believe that we're currently in a lower tax bracket than we will be in the future, and you've got $750,000 in assets, I'm going to assume that that's in a 401k or an IRA. That's most likely the scenario. So why would we not consider taking the money to live off of out of those accounts now, when we believe we're in a lower tax bracket than we will be in the future, and letting our Social Security continue to grow over the next few years? You could totally take it now, but is that really the best option? It's an option, but it may not be the best for your circumstance. So choosing to pay taxes now on those qualified dollars, letting Social Security continue to grow, even possibly beyond full retirement age, right? Because we know that every year we wait past full retirement age, we get a guaranteed 8% increase on our money. We don't get that in the stock market. That $750,000 that you have invested, I'm going to assume, like I said, it's in a 401k or an IRA, and that it's invested in stocks and bonds. And how are things going right now for the stocks and bond market, right? So ultimately, having that increase guaranteed on your Social Security and choosing to pay taxes now at a lower rate could really be a recipe for something stronger in the future in retirement. Now, the other piece that weighs into this too is, what if you can live off your Social Security? What is the goal for that $750,000 that you have in assets? Is that something that you want to spend in your own lifetime, or is that something that you're looking at more of as an inheritance or something that you want to pass on? What is that going to do for you? And then making sure that that's invested properly. So ultimately, that really factors into a one-on-one conversation, making sure that we understand what your particular situation is. So the next scenario for you, Mark, it says, I have an annuity that I'm very pleased with, but I still have about $200,000 sitting in cash. My advisor has suggested that I put that money into another annuity, but I'm not sure that it makes sense to have a second one. What do you think?
Well, I want more info. We keep it simple in our office. We want our clients to have money classified basically in three colors: red, yellow, green. We keep it very simple. Red money would be money in the market that we're trying to keep those dollars ahead of inflation a little bit, which means we do need to take a little bit of risk with those dollars, right? Now we have yellow money, that's bank inventory. We want plenty of cash for you to have enough cash to pay 6 to 12 months worth of your bill. So if I've got, let's say I need $5,000 a month, take 6, you got to have a minimum of $30,000, right? 30 to 60 liquid all the time. And then there's the green money. We call that the protected growth. That's money that's going to be protected like bank inventory, or money that's protected by the FDIC. But we have a much higher likelihood of having a much better return on those dollars. So again, depending on the other assets you have, how much other liquidity do you have, that's going to help answer that question as to whether another annuity might make sense. It might or it might not. Just because having a second annuity, it could still be a good thing, but we don't know without having a lot more information. We want a plan that's balanced, right? That's the thing. Everybody doesn't need an annuity, and everybody doesn't need the stock market, right? Depending on your age and what you want those dollars to do. I think that's a big thing that I want to highlight. What do you want those dollars to do? That should determine how you invest and protect your money.
Tell you, scenario is always interesting. So many ways that you can go about this, but you need all the information. You need to have that plan. We have an opportunity for you to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. Casey, what's going to happen for the next 10 callers?
Well, those that are willing to pick up the phone, give us a call. We're going to sit down and have a conversation one-on-one. We'll talk through your specific situation to better understand where you're at. And then from there, start talking about what we can do to make some adjustments to improve that. So ultimately, we're going to start with how you're invested, right? What type of risk are you taking? Is it appropriate? Is it appropriate for your age? Are your investments truly going to capture growth for you in the future? What do the fees look like on those investments? We're going to talk through taxes and make sure that there's an official tax plan for you as you move into retirement to lessen the taxes now, lessen them over the course of your retirement, and make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So if you've saved $250,000 or more, don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
10 spots, no cost, no obligation, no pressure. Call now, 866-668-3625. Again, if you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. The number again, 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, I'm Morgan Patrick. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.